Hello and welcome everyone. This is the second episode of the series that I am making on partition literature. This episode is the continuation of the introduction that I began in the first episode. So, here I am continuing from where I stopped in the previous episode. If this video helps you in any way, do like, share, and subscribe. Let's begin. So, we stopped here at this point, and I am continuing from the next paragraph. When the British rulers had decided that India was to be divided into different nations on the basis of religion, they assigned the task of drawing the border to a British judge named Cyril Radcliffe. This man, Cyril Radcliffe, had no prior knowledge of India. This was the first time he was to come to India, and it was his job to decide on and divide the states of Bengal and Punjab. For such a crucial assignment, deciding the fate of crores of people, Cyril Radcliffe was given only 5 weeks at work. This is the original time at work, 5 weeks. Including journey time and everything, it was 7 weeks. Okay, so in 5 weeks, he had to decide upon and draw the lines in both the east and the west of India. He was well aware of the magnitude of the task that he was assigned to, and he knew how history from the Indian perspective would remember him. This is evident from what he wrote in a letter to his nephew. Nobody in India will love me for the award about the Punjab and Bengal, and there will be roughly 80 million people with a grievance who will begin looking for me. I do not want them to find me. As soon as it was confirmed that independence and partition were imminent, the British rulers focused on wrapping up the job in a hurry just to avoid the responsibility of the ongoing catastrophe. The Labour government in London had announced on 20th February 1947 that the British would leave India by June 1948, but on 4th June 1947, Viceroy Mountbatten mentioned for the first time that the British would leave by August 1947 instead of June 1948, shortening the time from a full year to just 10 weeks. The reason behind this decision, or I should say the justification behind this drastic decision, is put into words by the biographer of Mountbatten, Philip Ziegler, and the justification is: once the principle of partition had been accepted, it was inevitable that communalism would rage freely. The longer the period before the transfer of power, the worse the tension and the greater the threat that violence would spread. Today it was the Punjab, tomorrow Bengal, Hyderabad, or any of the myriad societies in the subcontinent where Hindu and Muslim lived cheek by jowl. 200,000 dead could have become 2 million, even 20 million. Even when Cyril Radcliffe was ready with his decision upon the Punjab award, Because of Mountbatten's insistence, the boundary was not published until after the date of independence. Why? Mountbatten justified this delay in the following way. Without question, the earlier it was published, the more the British would have to bear responsibility for the disturbances which would undoubtedly result. The later we postponed publication, the less would the inevitable odium react upon the British. So, we have got a very brief idea about how the partition was decided and executed. Now it is time we move on to understand how did partition actually jeopardize the human condition. Partition literature is the study of particular literary pieces that focus on the subject of partition, delving into and delineating the immediate and the prolonged impact of partition on the lives of people across the borders. First, let us take a look on a poem named Partition, written by Weston Hugh Auden. Unbiased, at least, he was when he arrived on his mission. Having never set eyes on this land, he was called to partition. Between two peoples fanatically at odds, with their different diets and incompatible gods. Time, they had briefed him in London, is short. It's too late for mutual reconciliation or rational debate. The only solution now lies in separation. The Viceroy thinks, as you will see from his letter, that the less you are seen in his company, the better. So we have arranged to provide you with other accommodation. We can give you 4 judges, 2 Muslim and 2 Hindu, to consult with, but the final decision must rest with you. Shut up in a lonely mansion, with police night and day patrolling the gardens to keep assassins away, he got down to work, to the task of setting the fate of millions. The maps at his disposal were out of date, and the census returns almost certainly incorrect, but there was no time to check them, no time to inspect contested areas. The weather was frightfully hot, and a bout of dysentery kept him constantly on the trot. But in 7 weeks it was done. The frontiers decided. A continent, for better or worse, divided. The next day he sailed for England, where he quickly forgot the case, as a good lawyer must. Return he would not, afraid, as he told his club, that he might get shot. Weston Hugh Auden, himself being an Englishman, composed these lines in 1966 to depict the process of partition in a very sharp and sarcastic way. Auden presents before us a picture of Cyril Radcliffe without taking his name, as he was given the task of deciding the fate of millions of people within a short span of 7 weeks. Auden's sarcastic portrayal of the process of partition concludes with a sharp comment where he clearly says the person who performed the task of drawing the borders to divide a continent and affected the lives of so many people so severely can never have the courage to return and face those people. Here, not only Cyril Radcliffe as an individual, but the entire British administration is satirized by the poet. For they took the decision of partition, they decided the borders, they affected the lives of millions of people, but they never showed the courage to take the responsibility of the wrong that they did. Instead, the British always took pride in whatever they did and they called all their actions as the epitome of civilized behavior. The decision of partition caused the greatest mass migration in history. Donald F. Ebright writes, "Nowhere in known history has the transfer of so many millions taken place in so few days." He describes the plight of the migration caused by the cataclysmic partition in the following way. The dust of the caravan stretched low across the Indian plains and mingled with the scent of fear and sweat, human waste and putrefying bodies. When the cloud of hate subsided, the roll of the dead was called, and 500,000 names echoed across the desert land, dead of gunshot wounds, sword, dagger, and knife slashes, and others of epidemic diseases. While the largest number died of violence, there were tired, gentle souls who looked across their plundered gardens and then lay down and died. For what good is life when reason stops and men run wild? Why pluck your baby from the spike or draw your lover from the murky well? Before going to the very end of this short introductory discussion on partition, I would like to recommend two books. These two books are very important in understanding the background of partition literature. First one is India After Gandhi, written by Ramchandra Guha. Read the first part of this book, consisting of 6 chapters. And the second book is The Other Side of Silence, written by Urvashi Butalia. These two books are very, very essential for studying the backgrounds of partition literature. Now, to conclude this introductory session, I should point out what partition literature records, what it presents before us, what it says. So, I am just presenting some parts of some texts to show you what do we get from this particular literature. So firstly, partition literature records the agony, the anguish and trauma of the partition of 1947. Let us look at a poem, Doodh Da Katal, written by Shiv Kumar Batalvi, translated by Shuman Kashyap. I still remember it today, and you must remember it too. When together we murdered our mother. My childhood was killed with the murder of my mother, and its cold corpse was left behind in your place. Even now, I become quiet when I remember that, and lose myself in the thoughts of that half a body that was your share. As partition decided who should belong to which side of the border, and uprooted people from their homes to get them to their so-called homelands or safer places, partition literature also questions such a concept of home, where one doesn't actually feel to be at home. Thus, Sadat Hasan Manto concludes his story Tobatek Singh with these lines: There, behind barbed wire, on one side lay India, and behind more barbed wire on the other side lay Pakistan. In between, on a bit of earth which had no name, lay Tubatik Singh. As Jibanananda Das had strongly declared, even before partition, that go where you will, I shall remain on Bengal's shores. Segregation between people on either sides of the borders is strongly criticized in literature. Partition literature presents before us the case of our togetherness despite being divided by borders. So, I shall conclude this introductory discussion by reading the following poem, Denial by Taslima Nasrin. India was no discarded paper that you had to tear to bits. I want to erase the word 47. I want to wash away the ink stain of 47 with water and soap. 47, the word pricks like a thorn in my throat. I do not want to swallow it. I want to vomit it out. I want to regain the undivided soul of my forefathers. I want Brahmaputra as much as I want Subarnarekha. I want Sitakunda hills as much as Kanchanjunga, Srimangol as much as Jalpaiguri. I want the shal forests of Bihar as well as Ajanta and Ellora. If Curzon Hall is mine, Fort William belongs to me too. That man who fought in 71 and won, that man who thrashed away the two-nation theory, he can never accept defeat at the hands of 47. So we have got a glimpse of the partition, the causes of partition, the process of partition, and how it impacted people's lives, and how literature depicts the same. So this was our introductory discussion. From the next episode, we shall move on to discussing different texts. Again, if you like the video, if this helps you, do like, share and subscribe. And I have written all these things so that you can take notes out of it if you wish. You can take quotations out of it. So that's why I have written it down. And again, if this helps, like, share and subscribe. Thank you.